Hey, what's up, Rick? How's it going?
Kevin, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So today we're looking at Buildforce, who raised a $10 million Series A to staff electricians nationally.
Yeah, let me just jump in right there. So obviously the news is the $10 million raise, which is great. Staff electricians nationally, I'm not sure that is something I necessarily have to double click on to see more details. Um, I feel like they needed something else there to make it sound like it's really something important. Um, they could have also, if it made sense, put in the name of an investor. But just to say to staff electricians nationally doesn't really feel like it's news quite to me.
Yeah, it's not that catchy, but let's dig in and see what they
Yeah,
mean. Strategic investors lead financing to double down on national expansion and further development of technology. I'm gonna back you on your first comment and say, okay, we're a little vague right now.
yeah. There's if you've got strategic investors, go ahead and name them in the subhead.
Right. Okay, so this is July 28th. Buildforce, the largest tech-enabled electrician staffing business in the US, today announced it has raised $10 million in Series A funding led by Sapio Capital with participation from new investor Blue Heron Capital and existing investors including Revolution's Rise of the Rest Seed Fund, S3 Ventures, and Chicago Ventures. I like that they included the continuation from
Yeah,
participation from their existing investors. That's always a smart move. That the way they wrote it was a little sloppy in my opinion, but
yeah,
I'm glad they included it.
yeah. And then the next obvious question after you tell everybody you've got money is, well, what are you going to do with it? And to their credit, they go right in. The new capital will be used to fuel continued national expansion and to further develop its technology, serving both electricians and electrical contractors. So great. We know what they're going to do with it. Again, if you don't know Buildforce, to further develop its technology, well, I don't know what their technology is.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's learn more. Founded in 2019, Buildforce is a tech-enabled services company focused on connecting electricians with electrical contractors working on commercial and industrial construction projects. The company's platform is twofold: a Buildforce mobile app for individual electricians to find and perform work, and a web app for electrical contractors to find and manage electricians. To date, Buildforce electricians have logged over 2 million hours working with the company on over 2,000 commercial construction projects. That's significant. I like that
Yeah.
stat a lot.
The paragraph itself reads a little bit like a boilerplate to me. Founded in 2019, Buildforce is that's kind of like your here's who we are, which on one level, yeah, okay, we do need to establish that, um, but it feels like we've kind of moved on from the news a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious about to learn more about them. I know from firsthand experience trying to get electricians um, for emergency situations onto critical facilities, and when it's like
Mm,
4 a.m. and you need an electrician,
right.
they can be hard to find. So I'm pretty curious about what aspect of this problem they're addressing. But they are apparently a tech-enabled company, staffing company. So very interesting.
Yeah, well,
This
it's interesting that you bring up the need, right, and the pain point that comes up. I would have liked to have seen that. Like, okay, you raised 10 million. Okay, I get that you work with electrical contractors. Why is the fact that you received $10 million important?
right.
It wasn't because you were founded in 2019. It's because you're solving a problem that needs to be solved. And several investors felt that you were worthy of receiving money from them. So tell me what that problem is right away so I have an understanding and can say, oh, okay, yeah, makes sense. I can see why they got that money. In fact, I should have invested in them. That's a big problem that they figured out how to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, I mean, we were just looking at some data where construction, the hiring, that just came out, new data that the
Yeah.
workforce is growing. And so more people are needed. So they could have used some stats maybe to substantiate the context behind which that their solution is valuable. So this financing is a major milestone in furthering our mission to help people dedicated to a career in the construction trades lead more secure and fulfilling lives. We are thrilled to have this group backing us financially for the next leg of our journey. And I am especially grateful to the Buildforce team and the thousands of electricians and electrical contractors who have helped build this organization. That's a quote from the CEO.
Mhm.
Buildforce focuses exclusively on the electrical trade within construction. According to a 2026 economic report, the electrical trade is expected to be the single fastest growing employment category in the US labor market for the next 10 years with a growth rate of 9.5%. So that's very interesting. I'm glad they
Yeah.
finally got to that stat here.
Yes. Yeah, I would have maybe put that as the second paragraph. That gets me more excited about what they're doing than just telling me when they were founded. But yeah,
I agree. Yep. So they've got some good stats in here. This 9.5% growth per year in this electrical, and
yeah,
also the 2 million working hours that they've staffed, and the 2,000 companies they've worked with. So they got some good stats for sure.
yep,
Buildforce is capitalizing on a clear opportunity in America's generational infrastructure build out. We believe their mission to use technology to improve lives in the construction space will allow them to make a positive long-term impact on a large and important labor market, said their lead investor. We're proud to make an additional investment in the team and lead this round. So very
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I mean, that quote, I think in general is like, well, this is what we were able to get approved by this guy. It's not really telling me a whole lot here about, you know, like why they were willing to put their money down. It feels a little general
Yeah,
to me. It's always hard to get these kind of quotes. So I recognize that, you know, if sometimes if you draft a quote for someone, they will whittle it down to it being very soft, or it's difficult to get them to write one. So at the very last minute, somebody finally dashes one off and hands it to you, and you don't want to go back. Um, but if you've got an investor willing to get on, you know, get say something on record, try to get something that's a little bit stronger and compelling.
I agree. It's a little boilerplate. Safe. It's very safe.
Yeah,
The US is facing a deepening shortage of skilled electricians as demand accelerates. That demand is driven by data center construction, infrastructure investment, and the energy transition. Buildforce created the platform that electricians and contractors needed, a purpose-built labor marketplace with deep workflow integration beyond job posting, said another investor of theirs. We have strong conviction in Moody and Vu as operators, and we're excited to support the company as it expands. It's a little bit punchier.
yeah. To me, it sounds more like something the CEO or founder of the company would say than a investor. But okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It does read as a CEO quote. That's what
yeah,
I thought when I was going to get to
right,
who wrote it. That's
right,
what I thought I'd be saying, but then I saw it was
yeah,
is their investor, one of their investors. So, and then finally, let's look at their boilerplate. I love looking at these. About Buildforce. Buildforce is a tech-enabled staffing company focused on the electrical trade, based in Houston and Austin, Texas. Founded in 2019, the company provides electricians and electrical contractors with a modern marketplace experience, allowing them to connect and work together seamlessly. Its mission is to help people dedicated to a career in the construction trades lead more secure and fulfilling lives. Not bad. I like that
yeah. I
they,
mean, again, yeah, it's not bad. It's fine. I just think it was kind of said in the second paragraph. You didn't need to say it in the second paragraph
yeah,
if it was also in the boilerplate. I think the second paragraph is your opportunity to really state your case, right? That first paragraph is going to be mostly here's the news. And that in this case is we raised money, this is who we raised it from, and this is what we're going to use it for. Great. That's fine. Now, that second paragraph, talk to me about the pain point that you have in some way perhaps uniquely solved. And I felt like just kind of telling everybody, hey, here's our kind of historical backgrounder was maybe a missed opportunity for the second paragraph.
yeah, I would back you up on that. I think that if we move into like scoring,
Yeah.
obviously you and I, we talk about sort of two buckets. We talk about substance of the news, like what is the headline, what are they
Mm-hmm.
putting out there as news, and then the other bucket is execution. How well are they crafting their story and their message? How well are they, doing media outreach, things like that. So Maybe I'll go first and then we could blend our scores. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So on substance of the news, I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10. I think funding is always substantive and useful. It's the easiest thing to do news on, right? So substance 8 out of 10. I think the execution of the release itself was just okay. So I'm gonna go 6.5 out of 10. I think they could have done a much better job on the execution of the release, and it might have helped them do a better job of pitching media as well.
Yeah, sometimes with the news, your hands are tied a little bit. You don't have full control over it. The news, what you have to announce is what you have to announce. I'm sure they would have liked to have announced an 80 million Series A, right? But that just wasn't the facts. The facts were $10 million Series A, which is the news. It's not particularly groundbreaking or, innovative in any real way. So, I don't want to ding them for it because it is what it is, but it's the substance in itself isn't really big news. So I'm going to go lower. I'm going to go like a 6.5 on the news itself. And then in terms of, the delivery of that news, again, I think there could have been more done here. I don't think that the headline or the subhead is really being optimized. And we went over the release itself. I think some bold subheads could have done some work for them here. And again, I don't think the second paragraph really helped convey the importance of what they're doing and the money they got. So I'm looking more like again, maybe a 6 for that as well.
Okay. So 6 on the substance, 6.5 on the 6.5 on the substance, 6
Yep.
on the execution.
Yep.
So we've got your blended score of 6.25.
Yeah.
And I was an 8 and a 6.5. So what's that put me at? Uh,
725,
yeah,
something like
something
that.
like that. So yeah, we're mid to high sixes overall on this one, which feels about right.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Yep.
Again, I think Buildforce has some opportunities to, like I said, maximize their news and to really make it feel like maybe it's bigger than it is. And I don't
Yeah.
know that they really were able to do that here.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that kind of showed itself too in their pickup. So just from a straight funding perspective, I mean, you could generally get picked up in like 4 or 5 outlets and the smaller ones that just serve sort of funding news. And they went
Mm-hmm.
out over PR Newswire. So they should have shown up in more outlets than they did. And it looks like they secured one sort of written actual editorial story from a local reporter in Houston. So I guess good job to them on doing that. I think that's a nice little win.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Kevin. When you're talking about funding announcements, that's almost a cottage industry within the media. There are, probably 12 at least that I can think of outlets that really focus on investment news and these sorts of funding announcements. And you'd like to be able to get into half a dozen of them, everything from Fortune Term Sheet to somewhere in Axios, plus your trade outlets that cover these sorts of things as well. I think they might have been in This Week in Contact, but again, I think there was more room to get in some extras here.
I agree. And maybe that's a result or that's an outcome of that messaging and positioning in that release itself. So
I will say that while $10 million is absolutely nothing to sneeze at, from a media standpoint, for some outlets that just isn't enough. They're looking for a minimum of 30, 40, 50 million in order to put it in their in their newsletter or roundups or what have you, just because there's so many big ones out there.
totally. All right, so that was this week's episode of the PR Teardown. Shout out to Buildforce on their raise last week, and stay tuned for another one of these PR Teardowns next week.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, thanks.